Mike Daisey, monologuist, and the star, if that's the appropriate word, of the Agony and Ecstasy of Steve Jobs. Mike, you've said that Apple are committing a terrible sin by producing their devices in China.
In the way that they produce them.
In the way that they produce them. Would you go on then to say that people like myself who use these devices are also committing a sin?
Well, it's a complicated question, isn't it? Because we live in this society together, and these devices become our way to connect with one another, to actually be the web work, the foundation of our society. So I don't think it's reasonable or healthy to expect everyone to throw away all their devices and then we all go live in yurts together, you know? I mean, we actually have to move forward. At the same time, I think that we have a tremendous obligation to try to correct this wrong, to at least begin to pull the boat back into a direction that is more ethical. So many of the things that are wrong in Shenzhen, at Foxconn, in those plants, all over southern China, so many of them are not even monetarily based. Like, they do not impact the bottom line of the companies, but they require people to care about the circumstances under which things are made. Apple is famous for industrial design, for form following function. It is irresponsible in our age today to not consider the circumstances under which a beautiful thing is designed. I would argue that that's part of the design itself, and I think everyone who participates in that system, and I include myself, need to think really deeply, begin to wake up about our circumstances. And for me, one of the ways I'm trying to discharge my responsibility is talks just like this one, and by crafting in work the monologue that I'm performing, to talk about these circumstances in a way that's charged and uses humor to kind of pierce through the grimness of it so we can actually wake up. Because if you're like me, before I went, I really never thought about this stuff at all. At all. In fact, if you asked me what I thought, how my MacBook Pro was made, in my mind, I'd never thought about it. In my mind, I had this sort of abstract picture of a Japanese automotive plant that I think I saw in 60 Minutes. I think if I even had a picture in my mind at all, it was sort of a plant, and but all the machines are smaller because instead of cars, they're making laptops. But like otherwise, I had no vision at all. And I think most people who are seeing the monologue, most people hearing this, if they really look into their hearts, probably don't have an image at all either, because Apple and the other tech companies are dedicated to having there be no image of like how things are made, because they know it's not attractive.
So what can you do? What can they do? What should they do?
Well, it's interesting. It's like the beginnings of the organic food movement. It's the beginnings of any movement, is awareness. Because right now, the tech industry, it's a flat line. There are no nonprofits that really, within the tech industry, that are even concerned with these issues. There's certainly no one on the ground in China. There's no one even petitioning these companies in the first world to have independent monitoring in the third world. Those things need to begin, and I think the first step is for people who are watching this to actually begin to evaluate. Do your own research. You know, go out, Google, reach out. Journalists watching this, especially tech journalists, I'm going to get up and start doing your job. This industry is more than reviewing products that are put out by companies. It is about evaluating the circumstances with which technology interacts with people. I went to Shenzhen on my own dime. I did my own research. I would like other journalists to join me. Like, they can go and do these things.
I would like at some point to connect you up with a journalist at TechCrunch called M.G. Siegler, who is a brilliant journalist, very articulate, but a deep lover of Apple product, perhaps the journalist who has most fetishized the Apple brand. What would you say to him?
I say he has a very painful awakening coming. I know, because I found it very painful myself. But I mean, it's not just about Apple. I mean, it wouldn't matter what kind of technology.
So it's Android, it's Motorola.
There are no personal electronics that are made in a humane fashion by any of the major manufacturers and even the minor ones. There's nothing I could recommend people switch their buying decisions to today. Everything we need to do begins with changing the circumstances under which the things are made so that we can actually get to a point where companies realize that the public is awake enough that they would care about the equivalent of a sweatshop-free label on technology. It's going to take a while to even get to that point, but I feel like these are the beginnings of it, and it's going to require people to wake up, to do their own research, and for journalists to help them, to look into these things. It's not hard. I went there. They can go. They can find the same things. And I think that's the beginning of consciousness, is for people to look and see what's there.